Okay, since we've waited a little bit, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. I'm Rebekah Hilfiger. I'm a registered dietitian with Kelly's Choice, and I am excited to be here tonight. So we're going to talk about simple food swaps for just making healthier choices. And for those of you who don't know, just want to welcome you to Kelly's Choice, a nutritional company. We're real people who promote eating real food. And as I said, we're going to talk about simple food swaps to make healthier choices. So why do we want to do food substitutions? By making these swaps, we can cut calories and unhealthy, more processed foods from your diet by utilizing these food substitutions. Healthy eating doesn't mean giving up all the foods you love, but these smart substitutions can be both delicious and help you maintain a healthy eating pattern, even when you're dining out or, have limited time to do meal prep, etc. So let's explore some simple swaps you can make in your kitchen to encourage a long, happy, healthy life. First, we're going to talk about grain swaps. So whole grain foods are great for health, with studies showing that a diet high in whole grains reduces the risk of a large variety of chronic and lifestyle diseases. So some simple swaps that we can do with grains are white bread, wraps, rolls, or flatbread, and choose whole grain varieties instead. So just look on the package and make sure it says whole grain, or if you look at the ingredient list, it should say whole grain wheat flour or whole wheat flour rather than just wheat flour. Same with pasta. You can substitute whole grain pasta for white pasta, wild or brown rice for white rice, heavily processed breakfast cereals, choosing a whole grain variety instead, or even doing oatmeal instead of a processed breakfast cereal, and swapping air pop popcorn for snacks such as chips. And another snack swap that you can do is rice or flavored crackers, swapping those for a whole grain cracker variety. So like they have brown rice crackers instead of white rice crackers, or just a whole wheat cracker instead of a white, more processed cracker. So some swaps in the protein category that we can do. Change your ordinary yogurt to Greek yogurt. So Greek yogurt is higher protein because it's been strained, so it's more concentrated. I believe regular ordinary yogurt has about 8 grams of protein in about 3/4 of a cup, whereas Greek yogurt has close to 15 to 20 grams of protein in 3/4 of a cup. So you almost double your protein intake by making that swap. Again, there's more protein in quinoa or buckwheat, which are different types of grains, than in white rice. So by choosing whole grains, you're also increasing your protein intake. Choosing to have eggs instead of usual cereal can be a great way to increase your protein intake at breakfast. Go for a salad with cottage cheese at lunchtime in place of a sandwich. And try using ground up nuts and seeds as higher protein alternative to breadcrumbs. Nuts and seeds are also a much healthier and higher protein snack than a packet of like crackers or chips. So not only is grabbing a higher protein snack going to help you feel full longer, it's just going to have a lot more nutrients than a more processed grain product or snack food. And another way that you can increase your protein intake is instead of getting juice or soda to drink, choosing a glass of milk. Milk has about 8 grams of protein in 1 cup, whereas juice and soda have no protein. So protein helps us feel full longer. It is the building block of so many different processes in our body. So we definitely want to make sure we're eating adequate amounts of protein. Dairy. So research shows that those who have deficiencies in calcium, which calcium or dairy is a good source of calcium, hold a greater fat mass and experience less control of their appetite. More so, studies have found that dairy sources of calcium like yogurt, low-fat or non-fat cheese, and milk are markedly more effective in accelerating fat loss than other sources. So some good dairy choices you can make are, again, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, low-fat cheeses, string cheese made with skim milk, low-fat chocolate milk or low-fat fortified yogurt, skim fortified milk, and pre-portioned cheese spreads. One thing just to be aware of with low-fat chocolate milk and some yogurts is often they're sweetened with sugar. So especially if your goal is weight loss or you have diabetes, just be aware that when choosing a yogurt or a flavored milk, that there is more added sugar. So healthy fat swaps. Swap unhealthy fats for more heart-healthy fats, as eating too many foods rich in saturated fat and not enough foods rich in heart-healthy unsaturated fats can increase blood cholesterol levels. And cholesterol is what can lead to heart disease because the arteries become damaged and so the cholesterol deposits and therefore cuts off or limits the blood flow to different areas of the body. So it's important to keep your overall fat intake down, but also replace saturated fat with healthier unsaturated fats. So some easy ways that you can swap out fats, using applesauce in place of oil or butter, like if you're making a baked good or pancakes or something along that line, you can swap the applesauce in place of oil or butter. Using avocado, which is like nature's natural butter, in place of regular butter. That's a great way to increase your healthy unsaturated, monounsaturated fats. Utilizing a banana in place of oil or butter. So mash up the banana and just substitute the oil or butter that's called for in a recipe. You can also use prunes in place of butter, flax meal, and chia seed can also be used in place of butter. You can also mix flaxseed and chia seed with a little bit of water and utilize it as like an egg substitute if you're also just looking for other ways to reduce your cholesterol intake. Some condiment swaps that you can do. So you can utilize hummus, pesto, mashed avocado, cottage cheese, or Greek yogurt instead of mayonnaise on like sandwiches, or even in tuna or chicken salad or egg salad. If you don't want to go straight hummus or mashed avocado, you can do a mixture of mayonnaise and one of those alternatives to increase the healthy fat profile and decrease the fat from the mayonnaise. Make your own barbecue sauce with ingredients like garlic, lemon, and fresh herbs for tons of taste. Make your own homemade ranch dressing with Greek yogurt. Add a little parsley, lemon juice, salt, and pepper. It's so fresh tasting, and you will never want to go back to a bottled ranch dressing again after trying that. In place of ketchup, you could use salsa or sun-dried hummus or cocktail sauce. These are all great ways to reduce the amount of sugar and also just increase the fiber that you're having with whatever you're eating. And then you can also make your own salad dressings by using vinegar or citrus juice, such as lemon, with olive oil and a little salt and pepper, garlic, whisk it together. Makes a great like vinaigrette to go over salad or cucumber and tomato salad. And in place of soy sauce, you could use low sodium soy sauce, just to cut down on the amount of sodium. You can use coconut aminos, which is made from the sap of a coconut tree. And so it is a little, it's not sweet tasting, but it's sweeter tasting compared to soy sauce, but it's a great substitute if you're looking to reduce your sodium intake or trying to limit soy. Tamari sauce is another good healthy swap for soy sauce. So here are some sodium swaps, and it doesn't really matter if you never reach for the salt shaker. Only about 10% of the sodium in our diet is from salt that we add at the table. More than 75% of it is from processed foods or food that we get from a restaurant or any other kind of takeout foods. So some ways that you can reduce your sodium intake: using herbs or citrus juice in place of salt, using garlic powder in place of salt. Again, low sodium soy sauce instead of standard soy sauce, making a homemade salad dressing in place of bottled dressing. That way you can control how much salt is being added, as bottled dressings, among many other condiments, tend to be pretty high in sodium. Putting sliced tomatoes for sauce on a pizza, or doing rolled oats instead of breadcrumbs, as breadcrumbs tend to be pretty high in sodium. Some sugar swaps that you can do. So in place of sugar, you can use unsweetened applesauce and things like cookies, baked goods, muffins. It's a good way to increase the fiber a little bit and decrease the sugar. Using natural peanut butter instead of like reduced fat peanut butter. So often when they reduce the fat in peanut butter or a lot of other food items, they add sugar to try to balance out the flavor. So choosing natural peanut butter, which is the one that has the oil separation, you just stir it a little bit before you use it. That's a good way to reduce your sugar intake and also sidestep the hydrogenated oils that tend to be in the peanut butters that are, cohesive or all mixed together. Another way to cut down on sugar is switching to seltzer water instead of soda. You could add a little bit of your favorite 100% fruit juice or a little bit of lemon wedge, lemon juice, just to give it a little flavor. But that's a great way to reduce the amount of sugar that you're drinking, as soda tends to have anywhere from 30 to 60 grams of sugar just in one 12-ounce can. You can opt to use stevia in place of sugar, using cocoa nibs instead of chocolate chips. So cocoa nibs are, they're basically the less processed form of chocolate. And they have a more like earthy kind of coffee flavor to them. They're really good. Great source of magnesium as well. Using vanilla extract in place of sugar. So like if you're making, I don't know, you're wanting to like sweeten your own yogurt or something like that, try adding some vanilla extract instead of sugar. Putting cinnamon instead of cream and sugar in your coffee. Opting for unsweetened iced tea instead of juice. Choosing plain yogurt and adding your own fresh fruit or frozen fruit instead of flavored yogurts, as the flavored yogurts tend to have a lot of sugar added to them. Using frozen or fresh fruits instead of canned fruits. So part of the canning process to preserve fruit involves a lot of added sugars. So choosing fresh or frozen fruit is a good way to cut down on sugar intake. Or if, canned fruit is really the most economical option for you, trying to choose canned fruits that are reduced sugar would be a good way to still cut down on sugar. And then choosing red wine instead of white wine. So white wines tend to be much higher in sugar than red wines. Of course, it also depends on whether it's a more dry or sweet wine too. So choosing drier wines rather than sweet wines. Some gluten-free swaps. So if you are trying to avoid gluten because for a health condition, or you just notice you feel better when you don't eat gluten, some ways you can swap out gluten using black beans for flour. So like grinding up black beans to make a flour or purchasing black bean flour. Using gluten-free flour tortillas. So like corn tortillas are gluten-free rather than wheat flour tortillas. Using quinoa instead of couscous. So couscous is actually a type of pasta that's made from wheat flour, whereas quinoa is a gluten-free grain. Zoodles instead of pasta noodles. So there's lots of tools and gadgets that you can buy out there to make zucchini and other vegetables into the shape of noodles and use those in place of pasta. Using ground flax seeds in place of breadcrumbs. Key here is you want to make sure you grind up your flax seeds if you're going to use them in any recipe. Otherwise, our body's not able to break down a whole flax seed. And choosing spaghetti squash in place of pasta. So another pasta substitute that you can do if you're gluten-free. With spaghetti squash, you basically just cut it in half, bake it in the oven, and then once it softens as it bakes, it just comes out kind of in spaghetti-like strings. You can use lettuce leaves in place of tortilla wraps, corn tortilla in place of a flour tortilla, quinoa for oatmeal. Now, oats technically are gluten-free, but they are often processed with wheat or on the same equipment as wheat products. So if you are, really trying to avoid gluten, or you're very sensitive to gluten, and look for oats that are certified gluten-free or utilize some other type of grain. You can use nuts instead of croutons. That's a great way to add a crunch, a lot of healthy fats without the added salt and gluten of croutons. Some vegan swaps. So if you're vegan or looking to just increase your plant intake, you can swap unsweetened applesauce for butter in recipes. Avocado puree also is a good stand-in for butter. You can use almond milk in place of dairy milk. Make ice cream out of pureed bananas in place of ice cream. You could swap olive oil for butter. One note here, if you're cooking at a high heat, olive oil's not a good swap for butter because olive oil has a very low smoke point. So using something like avocado oil when you're baking at high temperatures or sauteing would be a good swap for butter. You could use coconut milk in place of cream, sprinkle on nutritional yeast in place of cheese. It has a really cheesy flavor. You can use mashed bananas in place of butter or Crisco or any other type of baking fat. Use prune puree in place of butter. You can also use ground chia seeds in place of butter. And as I've previously mentioned, you can grind up chia seeds or flax seeds and add a couple tablespoons of water, let it sit for a few minutes, and that can be used as an egg replacement in any baked good. So some swaps for sweets. You can do chocolate chip strawberries, which sound really good right now. You could freeze or dip a banana in chocolate and then freeze that and have a chocolate covered banana. You could do a yogurt parfait, fresh fruit, which is delicious, and we're coming off of berry season, getting into apple and pear season right now. Dark chocolate is a great sweet, dessert option that's high in magnesium and can really hit that sweet tooth spot. You can do a smoothie instead, which is a great way to get in fruits and vegetables. Again, doing banana ice cream. So you puree bananas and you can add other fruit if you like as well, and then put it in a container and just freeze it for a couple hours, and it's really delicious. Graham crackers, rather than like a large cookie or some other type of more rich dessert. Baked apple with a little cinnamon on it is a delicious dessert, especially during this fall season when apples are really at their peak. Could do fruit and cottage cheese or fruit and yogurt. Freeze grapes or other berries and just have frozen fruit to suck on. It's a nice cooling snack. Animal crackers, trail mix with dark chocolate, or frozen blueberry yogurt are all great healthier swaps in the sweet department. So some cooking swaps. Oven or pan frying rather than deep frying. Yes, those chicken tenders are delicious greasy, but forgoing the oil bath for just a misting of oil in a pan or oven makes it easy to cut fat without sacrificing flavor. So the one thing about when things are deep fried, they're often deep fried in really processed oils, and because they're at such a high heat and used for an extended period of time, it really changes the chemical structure of those oils, which then can cause damage in our body when we eat them and cause inflammation. Can also raise cholesterol and triglycerides. So it's really best to forgo things that are deep fried and instead, pan sear it or saute it or bake it in the oven with just a little bit of oil to help keep it juicy. Steaming rather than boiling. So steaming or boiling can be a way to cook things, especially like if you're making a homemade broth. But if you're boiling vegetables or even meats for a really long period of time, it really can cut down on a lot of the nutrients in the vegetables, because most nutrients are in vegetables. Most of the vitamins are water soluble, so they are easily leached out of the vegetable. So for example, if you ever boiled any kind of vegetable like broccoli, the water will turn really green afterwards. Steaming helps keep in more of the nutrients because the vegetables are not submerged directly in the water. So if you just get a steaming basket and place the vegetables in the steaming basket sitting above the water, then you're going to retain more of your nutrients. And our last swap that you can do is to saute chicken in broth saute in chicken broth instead of oil. So you won't get quite the same browning effect as if you're cooking in oil, but it is a way to lighten up the dish and decrease the amount of added fats in the foods you're making, but it also adds a lot of flavor. So those are some healthy swaps that you can make. And does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again next month for our next healthy food webinar. Have a good night, everyone.